Why outsourcing is even more relevant today. This is the My Amazon Guy podcast. I'm Stephen Pope. So I'm now joined by John from OnlinePH Jobs, and we're going to be talking today why VAs and outsourcing is even more relevant today than it ever has been, especially with coronavirus and COVID-19. So I'm now joined by John. John, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so we're going to talk today about virtual assistants and who they are. And let's start with that. So why would somebody need a virtual assistant to begin with?
So, I would guess most people selling on Amazon are small. I mean, there are definitely big people on Amazon. They probably already have some VAs working for them. But generally, as a small business owner, like there's just not enough time in the day to get everything done that you need to. And for me, when I realized that I could hire someone full time and they were competent and talented and cared and they were not a robot for around $400 a month, that was just realizing that and recognizing it was a big change for me. Changed my mindset. And so I think most people selling on Amazon would be just to recognize, oh, this exists, that someone for $400 a month could do all of my customer support, and they could deal with trying to get reviews, and they could handle inventory management, and they're competent and they're loyal and they're talented. So recognizing that would be a big deal.
So John, I apologize, I didn't grab your last name, John Jonas, and tell my audience what you do for OnlineJobs.ph.
So OnlineJobs is a job board. It's kind of like Indeed.com, where we just provide a platform for you to find people on your own, where we are not involved. They don't work for us. We don't recruit them for you. We don't tell you who to hire, or we don't know anybody good. We have nearly 1 million Filipino profiles there, and we have hundreds of thousands of employers using it. And you come on and post a job, and the Filipinos will apply to your job, and then you recruit them from there. So you interview them and hire who you think is the best.
So I have personally used the service, and we have on staff members from the Philippines, and you know it's kind of somewhat of an unknown secret, I feel, that there's a good labor pool of talented individuals specifically in the Philippines. Why do you think that is, John?
So there's a specific set of cultural things that exist in the Philippines that don't exist elsewhere. And I think one of the reasons it's kind of secret is because there's only 100 million people in the Philippines. It's not like India where there's 1.3 billion people or whatever it is, right? So for a long time, I think most of the world kind of said, oh, there's so many people in India and English is a primary language there. Let's go to India. And they kind of glanced over the Philippines. About 10 years ago, that started changing. And the world started waking up to like these cultural things that existed that were really favorable in the Philippines. Like they're super loyal if you treat them well, and they're honest with foreign employers, and they're hardworking, and they really want to make you happy, and they speak American English as like a primary language. And so there's a whole bunch of things that make this a different experience than what most people have had with outsourcing.
So I agree with everything you mentioned, John, and in my interactions with talent from the Philippines, I have found that loyalty definitely exists. I've also found, just colloquial speaking and interacting, without fail, I never asked for this, but without fail, they're all addressing me as sir. They're all very formal, and it's a very unique thing. So I see exactly what you're talking about. So in terms of that English talent, I think that the number one concern a lot of people have when they try and outsource some talent is can they read and write and speak the language that I need them to complete the job and duty. Why do you feel like the Philippines is capable on that front?
So English is government mandated as a primary language. Like they mandated that business be done in English. Schools, elementary school is very often taught in English. Like street signs are in English and billboards are in English. I've only been there once, That was in 2010, but I was really surprised to see billboards are in English, or street signs, or like the concrete printed on manhole, or the steel manhole covers are all in English. Um, and the Philippines, it has an odd situation that I haven't seen anywhere else in the world, where they look up to foreigners, and specifically like to the Western culture, where after World War II, the U.S. helped them rebuild the country, and so you kind of get this situation where they like our culture and they watch American TV and they watch American movies, and so English is American English or British English, not Indian English, is very, very ingrained into their culture. And so you can you talk to them and you understand them, and they understand you, and it's just a really good situation.
So let's talk about COVID-19 coronavirus. This is obviously causing the most volatile economy perhaps the world has ever seen. And kind of the main theme of our podcast today is why outsourcing is even more relevant today specifically. Why do you feel like having virtual assistants right now, using a jobs platform like OnlineJobs.ph, is even more critical today than it was, say, a month ago?
So I don't know that it's any more than it was a month ago, but like, I have 26 people that work for me. They're all in the Philippines. They all work full time for us, and every one of them is home, and they don't we don't have an office, and so we didn't have to shut anything down. I work from home. My business partner works from home. Not one thing has changed with our business. And so when this all happened, like, oh, we're on home confinement, or school is canceled, or all the businesses are closed, or whatever, nothing has changed for us. And that is due to, number one, obviously having an online business, it being online. But number two, all of our workforce is remote, and we're not dependent on anything being in office or being together. And that's really nice. Like, I sent an email yesterday to all of my team saying, how are you doing? And most of them said, I'm great. I'm working from home, but I'm already used to that. So that's fine. So I think, and even more than ever, like, if you're at home right now because you're not going to work and you're trying to run an Amazon business on the side, or this is your full-time job, whatever it is, dang, I've never seen a better time to try and shift the way you work than right now.
It's probably one of the biggest American workforce experiments that's ever been done before, because you've had all these people who have asked to work remote or try and find remote jobs in the U.S. economy for well over a decade now, and then all of a sudden, hey, those approvals that we needed to get to work remote, hey, everybody's doing it. It's forced. It's almost mandated right now with a quarter of the country and stay home and be sheltered, or whatever order it might be between all the states. So it's really interesting to see that experiment play out in real time, and productivity is going to shift from what I was reading on LinkedIn from some other experts last night. It's going to shift from activity focus to more focused on completing tasks and completing work and delivering deliverables, if you will. It's going to go from activity to deliverables. And so I think that's really fascinating to watch in the U.S. economy, but really the Philippines, they're already there. They're actually ahead of us on that remote workforce with the deliverables, because, hey, and this is how I do it in my business. I throw everything into Asana or project managing, and there'll be very frequently where we'll just kind of list a bunch of tasks in Asana and say, hey, please hit at it, go at it. And then they complete the work and they upload the deliverables, whether it's a creative work or whether it's, an advertising check-in or whatever it might be to run your business. They go out and deliver time and time again. So I really like that.
Yeah. I mean, I have a neighbor that is working from home now, and he has meetings. I have meetings from 1 to 4. Like, meetings? When do you work? When do you get anything done? Yeah, that's not a thing for us. Like, everything in our business is deliverable focused. And that's what we do. Like, we get crap done and we move the business forward.
I like that. Get crap done. It's all about deliverables. So that's good. You mentioned you had 26 employees. I think that any business that's tried to scale to that point has come through a lot of revolutions in how they run their business. I'm curious if you can walk us through a tiny bit of that history and maybe even talk about your org chart. And do you have, managers over in the Philippines managing other members of their team and stuff like that?
So for me, I'm a small business owner, and um, most I think most people, most small businesses would do really well to hire one person, and not to set up an org chart and not to try and build a team, at least not initially. I think I've seen so many times where people are like, "Oh, I need a team, and I'm going to go hire these four people," and then this isn't working out. Why not? Well, it's really hard to hire four people at once. It doesn't matter what their cost is. You still have to manage four people. And so for me, I started with one person, and that hiring that one person full time changed my life. Uh, it was amazing. Where the first time I hired this guy, in 2005, the only thing his job was to do whatever I asked him to do and whatever I was willing to teach him to do. And after a couple of months, I realized there's kind of two of me now, because I've taken things off of my plate and put them on his and taught him how to do it. So he's doing it the way that I want it done, and it's getting done without me. And now I can focus on more important things like how to make sales. And I think most people would do really well to say, I'm going to find one person to do something that I know how to do so I can teach them and have a good experience at hiring someone. And then they're going to do something for me that I'm going to get some time back in my life. And then I can move on and do something else.
I'm really fascinated by that one employee. Start with the one employee. I never would have thought of that personally. I guess I'm trapped in that team building mindset. But you're right. And looking back in my last couple of years as I've built my own agency, more success happened when it was very focused on one employee at a time and make that first hire. That really was the big game changer.
So here's what most people will tell you is to outsource the things you don't know how to do or you're not good at. And I think it's bad advice. It's bad advice from most people. Because unless the thing that you're good at is sales, like, okay, if you're good at sales, keep doing sales. Sweet. That's the single most important thing in the business, right? But if you're good at programming, programming isn't what builds a business. If you're good at design isn't what builds a business. Or if you're good at social media marketing, that's not what builds a business. What builds a business is making sales. So what you and so there's like 4% of the population who's really, really good at making sales, right? And the other 96% of us, when Gary Vaynerchuk says outsource what you're good at or outsource what you don't know and stick with what you're good at, and gives an example of, oh, I'm really good at making sales, and now I outsource sales and now sales are down. Well, yeah, that's a terrible example because that's like 4% of the population, right? For the rest of us, I graduated from college in computer science. I was a programmer. So as a programmer, I can make like $150,000 a year, right? I'm capped. That's it. If I'm doing programming work. Where if I hire someone else to do something I'm good at, programming, I can pay them $800 a month in the Philippines to do that. And it turns out they're just as good as I was. And now I can focus on making sales. And so for me, what most people try and do is they want to build a team because they want to hire the things that they don't know how to do and they're not good at. And what that ends up doing for you is you're already working 50 hours a week, and now you hire a bunch of people to do things you don't know how to do, which requires way more management. And so now you're trying to manage people, adding extra time to your week, which you already don't have. As opposed to the other way is hire one person to do something you do know how to do. And it's going to take you 5 extra hours this week and 5 extra hours next week. And after that, you're going to get 5 hours back. So you started with 50 hours. You're going to work 55 for a couple of weeks. Then you're going to work 45 or 40. And now you just freed up some time. And that freeing up of time is so important, especially in a small business where you can now focus on something that pushes the business forward. You can work on the business now instead of just in the business in those extra hours. And that's where I find that the major shift starts to happen for business owners is in getting some things off of your plate and transitioning what you're doing to transitioning into the high dollar things. So I'll give you an example, right? I have 26 people that work for me. I don't do anything in my business right now. I don't touch the website. I don't do any I haven't done any programming in probably 8 years. I don't do any design work. I never touch WordPress. I never touch a setting. I don't even log in. Um, I don't log into Facebook. I don't make posts. I don't do anything. The only thing I do is come up with decisions and direction, and I come up with processes and solve problems, and then I give instructions to other people for how they should do those things. Now, in the beginning, that started with I have this one process that I'm doing. We're writing these articles and marketing them online, and I hated it, but I knew how to do it. And so I took that process and I gave it to the first guy I hired in the Philippines. And it took some time to get it right with him. But after working with him through it and working with him through it, then he took over that process. And that was one thing that was off of my plate then. And I don't have to do it anymore. And that's where I suggest that most people start is get that one thing off of your plate. And then now that you have this person doing one thing really well, teach them something else. Teach them to do a second thing. Get them doing that. And when their time is filled full time, great. Now you're ready to hire someone else. Because that person's time is already done and you don't have to spend time on them, and they've taken time off of your plate, and now you hire someone else and you get doing something else. And then when their time is full, now you're okay. Now that you've experienced this and you've gotten good at it, now you're ready. Great. You want to hire someone to build your website for you that you have no clue how to do? Fine. Now's the time to do that. Hiring someone to build your website for you, the first thing is probably not. It's fine. It's doable. You can do it. It's just not the easier way to do this.
John, I let you monologue there because I was so fascinated by what you're saying. I think that's probably my favorite takeaway of our conversation today. And I'm really going to kind of get off this podcast after and really think about that. It's a lot to take in and think about that kind of mentality shift. And so I really appreciate you going into some great detail there. Let's move the conversation forward to recruiting process. So how should that process look like to make that first hire that you talked about?
So the Philippines has an interesting thing where they're so loyal that if they already have a job, they're probably not going to respond to you. So the wrong way to go about this is to go onto online jobs, start looking at profiles, find the one, and then contact them. Which I had an email yesterday from someone who said, I found this person and now I contacted them and I'm just waiting for them to respond. Well, like they might not respond to you.
They have their own life. They may not be looking.
Like these aren't, just because they have a profile on OnlineJobs.ph doesn't mean they're available to work. They just created a profile. It's like Indeed.com where, you have a full-time job, you have a profile on Indeed, but that doesn't mean you're available to work, right? So the better way to go about it is to cast a really wide net. So go on to Online Jobs. You're looking for someone with good English and with some design skills. Super common for someone running Amazon is good English and design skills. And you're going to just search for design skills and then filter with English, 5-star English. And get an idea of like what people are asking to make. Look at their salaries, look at their skills, look at their talents and how long they've been doing stuff, and just get an idea of like what exists out there, right? And then go post a job. Post a job saying, I am running this type of business and this is the person I'm looking for. Define the role. It's not you're responsible to do this and 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 this. Don't give them 50 tasks that they're responsible for. Just define a role. You are a customer service person. You are a general virtual assistant. I'm going to ask you to do a whole bunch of tasks, right? So you're going to define a role and then post the job. And then as people start applying to your job, which if you're posting for an Amazon virtual assistant, you're going to get tons of applications. Then you're going to start interviewing people. And as you interview people, your number one thing isn't which one of these people is the absolute best skilled person. That's great, but more importantly is which one of these people do I work the best with? Like, who do I communicate well with? Who do I really enjoy their style? So for me, this is really important. The first person I hired in 2005, he still works for me today.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, right. And that's not uncommon. I mean, I have people that have worked for me for 15 years and for 14 years and for 12 years and 10 and 9 and 7 and like it's a really long-term thing. And so finding someone that fits your style and someone that you get along with and someone that like you're excited to hear from them is really important. I have a couple of people that I hired and I kind of didn't follow this advice. I was maybe they were more a specialty person and my options were limited. And every day getting an email from them is kind of painful to me. Whereas others, I'm like, sweet, I have an email from him. Right? Like I love getting his emails because he's so dang good at it. Whereas this other person, it's kind of painful, right? So as you're hiring an employee, you're not hiring a robot on the other side of the world who, oh, they have this one talent and I'm going to get the best one because they're going to do this thing one time for me and then I'm done with them.
It's like creating a relationship.
You're gonna hire them. Yeah, you're hiring a relationship, and that relationship is going to affect your business for a long time, and it's going to be a really good positive effect on your business. So you're looking for someone who works well with you, along with skills. Like skills, don't get me wrong, skills are important, but it's not always the most important. So as you interview people, you're going to ask them lots of questions. And you're going to ask lots of questions over lots of time, and you're going to email them back and forth. As you do that, then as you've narrowed down your list from using email, then you will finally do a Skype interview. And you'll Skype interview a couple people. You're not going to try and narrow things down by doing a Skype interview from the beginning. That's the wrong way to go about it. And that's because Filipinos are scared of the Skype interview.
They're nervous. In fact, I interviewed one and his sisters were in another room and they like crawled behind him during the interview and he was so embarrassed. And I was like, dude, don't worry about it. I know what it's like to work from home. Like, I get it. I know this is your first corporate job. And I personally, yeah, and he's been an amazing hire, by the way. So like during those interviews, it's not going to be as formal potentially because they're so nervous.
They're so nervous.
But I think it's totally fine. And just crack that egg of nervousness in the first couple questions if you can. This is my opinion. And make them feel at ease, because then if you do that, you're going to see what they truly have to offer that you might have overlooked normally.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can do the Skype interview. Just do it later in the recruiting process. Don't do it in the beginning. And then you can test people, like have them do a test, pay them for their test. Like, especially if you don't end up hiring them, tell them, like, here's the test we're going to do. You're going to create an image for this product, or you're going to write this description or whatever it is. Just to see who do I like working with the best and who does the best work, the combination of those two things. And if it takes longer than like 20 minutes, you need to pay them for it, and tell them up front that you'll pay them for it. And then at that point you have a pretty good idea of who you're going to hire, and you're going to negotiate salary, and you'll have a reasonable idea of what they want. Salary is negotiable in the Philippines. So you can talk with them about like what are their needs, or here's what you want. Well, here's what you're asking for on your profile. Well, here's what I'm going to pay. Here's what I'm paying. So can we start at this? I wouldn't lowball someone, like it's a third world country. They're still very respectable and respectful, and so like they still have a lot of pride in themselves and their work and their salary. And then you're gonna say like, hey, when can you start? Like, oh, I can start tomorrow. Oh, sweet. Okay, well, here's your first task. And then you're going to work with them through the first task. You're going to give them training, and you're going to give them their assignment, and you're going to say, hey, when you come across something that's difficult or a problem or you're stuck or you don't know what to do, then come to me and I'm here to help you. And that's a really big deal with the Philippines is they don't want to disappoint you. And if they think that they're just on their own out on an island, then they don't know what your expectations are. And if they do anything wrong, they're worried they're going to disappoint you. And rather than disappoint you, they would rather disappear. And so if you set the expectation that, hey, I'm here to help you, hey, I'm here to work with you through this, then you're much more likely to have a long-term good working relationship with them, rather than being like, hey, here's your task, go do it and leave me alone, which is unfortunately the attitude some employers take.
And that can even happen to American employees. I'm sure there's some listening to this where they've had the absentee bosses in their past, and they're probably chuckling right now. Yep, I've been there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's end on this question. What can a VA do for Amazon sellers? I'm going to first give a couple of examples of how I've done it, and then I'd love for you to kind of chime in. So my favorite two hires that I've made, and this is more of an agency hire. This is not necessarily a good hire for a selling business that's a small business on Amazon. But I have loved to specialize, and I hired a graphics designer, and they help us build out A+ content. We have a creative director in-house who's on the American side. We run all of our content or review through that before we provide it to the client. But I have a graphic designer, and because Corona's going on right now, they're actually stuck at their house. And she's, she only normally works 40 hours a week, but the past 2 weeks she's worked 60, and we've just been crushing it with a bunch of design work. It's been fantastic. She's definitely been working really hard. So designer is one category that I've hired for. Another one is advertising. And I have found that the human eye will always beat the automated systems of automated PPC management, especially because Amazon's rolling out a new beta advertising program like every other week, it seems. Like yesterday, we just did a podcast on the new sponsored brand campaigns where you can target by custom image. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we'll put a link in the description. And basically, it's a new form of advertising, which, if you've got a third-party tool where you're paying automated ads to right now, they're not going to be exactly built to deal with all the beta changes and everything that's going on. So I, in fact, made an hire off of OnlineJobs.ph fairly recently to fill our advertising role. And they have been doing great. And when I posted the job on OnlineJobs.ph, I actually put right in the job description, send me a screenshot of your ad certification from Seller Central. And this individual who I hired did that, and we hired them within 24-hour time period. It was just fantastic. I also had them take a typing test because we write a lot of emails, and I just wanted to make sure that they could keep up on the communication. And that, for me, was part of my fit to know if I can work with them is, can they send a lot of emails? So those are the two favorite I've made. I also have a third one, which does just purely number polling and reporting, where they go in there and they look at the account and they send signals or reports that pull those reports that we send to clients. So those are my favorite three. But there's many things you could hire a virtual assistant for or a worker out of the Philippines to help full-time on an Amazon business. So those are my favorites. What are your favorites, John?
So for an Amazon business, like I've mentioned a couple of times, customer support is a big one.
That is a good one.
So I have an entrepreneurial son. He's 17 now. When he was 11, he started selling stuff on Amazon. The only option I had was either to discourage him or get on board and help him. Well, as an 11-year-old, you're probably pretty good at. Well, he was good at getting an idea going and setting it up, and not very good at following through. And at this point, he's more interested in girls than whatever else. So I have a VA in the Philippines that works for me on OnlineJobs.ph, but he also handles a bunch of the Amazon stuff. So he does all the pay-per-click stuff, all the advertising. He handles all of the inventory management. He tries to get reviews for people. He requests reviews, or I don't even know what he does anymore, frankly. Because he just, at this point, he's been working for me for so long. He's probably been with me for 9 years. And he has done so much of it that he just does it on his own now, which is so great. So in general, though, Some things that are very common for people to hire from the Philippines would be like programming, design, social media, building an iPhone app, SEO, content writing, doing WordPress stuff, just a general virtual assistant. That's probably the most common thing, a virtual assistant. Working on Shopify, video, audio editing, data entry people, web development.
Sounds like world is their oyster. That pretty much anything could be outsourced.
Anything that can be done online or on the phone, you can find someone in the Philippines to do it, and we have customers finding people doing that. So.
Well, great. So John is the founder of OnlineJobs.ph. John, I really appreciate you joining me today. And for those that might have a question or want to ask, who should they reach out to on Online Jobs to get more information?
So on Online Jobs, there is we have an education page where we'll teach you, where I teach everything I know about this. I try to. Then if you want more, like if you want to ask me a question, you can ask me a question. If you go to OnlineJobs.ph and use the contact us link, obviously it doesn't come to me, but all of our support people know that if you say this is for John, then they'll immediately send it to me and I will personally respond to you. So I'm happy to respond and help. Email is really the way that I do that.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, John, and we will post some links to more information within the description for those that are watching. This is the My Amazon Guy podcast.